Average age of death in the U.S.
It's much higher than 61. It's like 76.
78.
Oh,
now,
it's
who's
too
bringing
high.
that average up? Who's bringing that average up? That was 2017. I'm sure it's gone down.
Wake up, everybody. Today is August 13th, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the video games we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch Pulaski, joined by my co-host, Jason Wright. If you decide you like us, and if you've made it this far into the episode, we know you do. You can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or on all the other social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Co-host, Jason, how are you doing?
Doing well, my friend. Doing well. I've just I always try to think of something interesting, like pseudo interesting to talk about. The last few weeks, you guys have heard about me trying to fix things around my house.
Mm-hmm.
I've just realized this past week I've done next to nothing, like absolutely nothing, and it just amazes me how many days and weeks of your life you could just lose to nothing. That's something optimistic for us to talk about.
I just had that realization. I've had that realization many times in my life, but I had it again when we kind of finally started doing some spring cleaning and home renovations. I was like, man, and I tweeted about it. I was like, man, it only took, a global pandemic to get me to do my spring cleaning in summer, because it's 5 months today we've been in this. We got back from vacation, and then that next week she got pulled out of school, and I never went back to work, into the office, I mean. So it's been 5 months, and the time
pretty
just
crazy.
Slipped away.
Oh yeah, I mean it's weird because every day seems long, but then you look back and you're like, wow, it's already been 5 months. And not to say that I'm not enjoying part of this, because I am a homebody.
Mm-hmm.
As weird as that is to say, I mean, I'm not deriving pleasure from people suffering. That's part of it sucks. But if people had to stay 6 feet away from me and I could work from home and mostly stay home by choice, I mean, that'd be cool.
Sure, exactly. If it
But
wasn't
I want it
thrust
to be
on
my
people.
choice,
Right? Not others. Don't choose for them.
right?
I hate the holding pattern. I'm like, can we just decide? Can we just all say, okay, for 6 more months, this is just going to be it? I mean, we think maybe, but you have so many people either ignorantly and destructively trying to force things back, or at least at the very least wishing it could go back to normal. And I sympathize with that second group, of course, but it's too much up in the air. And so every week I'm like, all right, I made it another week. It's the best I can do. Yeah,
it kind of is. And that's the only way to get through is day by day, week by week. My company said we're going to be in our quote unquote phase 1 return to work phase 1, and for the rest of the year. Are you
in your phase 1 right now?
We're in our phase 1. So basically, it's going to be continuing to only 50% allowed in the company at one given time, and you alternate who's there what day. So I think they're doing the smart thing. So
sounds
no
reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say they've started requiring masks and everything too in the office, so it's good.
Yeah, I mean, we still haven't even begun any kind. I know one person on our team is going to the office because I think he was going insane. He lives on a boat, so he probably didn't have.
Probably thought that was a great idea when he didn't have to be there all the time.
Exactly. And so he just I gotta go. And so, but he's all alone there. He's the only guy, at least in our department, which is separated by huge rooms now, from what I understand, because we have a new office that I haven't seen yet. And so that'll be a whole nother ball of wax when I have to go back. And it's I got a new job now.
You weren't looking forward to that new commute anyway.
Nah, not at all. Or the dumb open floor plan. Mike Hardy, if you're listening, I said it. Mike Hardy's the CEO of Topps. I said it.
Oh boy.
I don't like it. I don't like open floor
Maybe we
plans.
should just start calling out CEOs on here.
Well, we're going to do some of that later. But before we do, we have some housekeeping.
I guess.
So like, sub, follow, subscribe, share, tweet, love everyone. Well, we stopped calling everybody what they're supposed to be called, the lovely NFers.
Yeah, the lovely NFers. Go
Totally.
check us out, and we are never free to play on every social media platform, so go check us out.
Click those links, click those buttons. It does it all for you, and it costs you nothing. And it makes it really, like, just imagine some fat, hairy slobs typing away at a keyboard, drinking some old, dusty coffee, and, like, they get an email. It's like, bing, your subscriber count went up 1, and boom, our day just turns around completely.
Absolutely.
So if you want that kind of power, go ahead and hit that button. I did another Finally Plays Let's Play thingy for Final Fantasy IX. This is episode 5, part 5 of it. It's pretty good. I recorded at night for the first time. Usually I record in the mornings on a weekend. I did it at night on a weekday, and I think I was a little spicier, still family friendly, but I brought a couple extra jokes to the table that time, and still about the same amount of time. Except if you live in Denmark. Big Denmark is encroaching in, and they don't want our videos there, so they got a copyright claim up there because of something. I really have no idea. I was singing an Aladdin song. Like, I had to go.
Oh, that's gotta be it.
I had to come back from saying goodnight to my daughter, and, like, on my way back, I was singing it, and I left it in. I was like, oh, that'll be funny. And I was wondering if that's what it was.
That's not it. I don't know if you've noticed, but when I did some of my Final Fantasy VII Let's Plays, I got copyright struck for those as well.
Man,
and it's the music in the game.
The Danes, they really hate their Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
All right. And then hopefully, it's not up yet and it won't be up tomorrow, but hopefully we'll have a new debates recorded by next and ready available by next week.
It all depends on Greg.
It does, whether he's the worst or not. All right. Jason, do we have some shout-outs?
We have some shout-outs. I just wanted to shout out to the only 2 people that I know for certain are listening to this. Now, if you want to be shouted out, then somehow let me know that you're listening, and I will shout you out. But we know that Sean is shouting out, so shout out to Sean for letting me know in his email that the camera jiggles when I type. I know that, and I'm working on getting a camera with better image stabilization. If everybody could stop panic buying webcams, that'd be awesome. Also, shout out to Josh for sending us the Halo story that we are about to talk about in our news section. But I do have to tell you, Josh, it was already on the dock, but I want you to feel special, so shout out to Josh. Corrections. Oh, we have corrections. You know we haven't had corrections music in so long.
Dust off that key.
Yeah. Jason, start corrections music now. Okay. Got a couple corrections one was from Sean. He says that he actually wasn't good at real-time strategy games back in middle school. So who knew? He seemed good to me. I was even worse. But he wasn't good either. So there. Gotta set the record straight.
What a Boy Scout that guy is. Tattling on himself. We could have just sat there and been like, man, that Sean guy, he's the king of RTSs.
He could have, but he didn't.
I'm
How
sorry.
honorable.
What an Eagle Scout.
Yes. Okay, another correction here. The remote play app that Karch argued with me about, it is that he said it was not available for either iOS or Android. He was wrong on both accounts. It's available for both iOS and Android. In fact, Karch already had it installed on his phone. So there you go.
I did. That's true. I'm the worst when it comes to even knowing what's on my phone.
But go ahead.
I will say, though, that it's dumb that they let me install it and they don't even support Bluetooth for the DualShock under version 10.0, and I'm on like 8, and the Galaxy 7 is never getting 10, so it's a useless piece of software because I'm never going to use those touchpad or the touch controls.
Sounds like your phone's a useless piece of hardware.
It is.
And lastly, we wanted to clear some things up on what I learned about Spider-Man with regards to who has the film rights and who has the gaming rights and blah, blah, blah. So Sony only owns the film rights to Spider-Man. They license him to Disney for MCU, for the Marvel Comic Universe movies. Disney owns the gaming rights And so what the assumption is that Sony paid Disney for the rights to make Spider-Man exclusive in the Avengers game. So divert your anger appropriately. End corrections music.
All right, so we've got a lot. I totally forgot I was supposed to say anything. We've got a lot of news today. Big news, huge news. This dropped at the tail end of... Yeah, it was right at the end of my work day, and then it just kept coming. It didn't stop until, I think I was getting new updates even, 2 hours ago.
Right before we went live.
Pretty much, yeah. So, earlier today, that's when I found out about it. Because articles are weird. They're like Thursday, so-and-so, but today's Thursday. I don't know if they're talking about last Thursday or today. It's very confusing because they know people are going to read it tomorrow. Anyway, at some point, Epic, the publisher and developer of the worldwide popular game Fortnite, implemented a new way to pay for V-Bucks, which is their in-game currency. 1,000 V-Bucks is $10, $9.99. And so what they did is they implemented a way to pay them directly without having to give a cut to Apple or Google for that matter. And then the V-Bucks would only cost $7.99. So saving the consumer $2 whole, and then saving Epic all that money they had to give to Apple, and Apple's upset. And then in response, almost immediately, Apple pulls Fortnite from the iOS store.
Which is insane.
It's a pretty big deal. Because, again, probably the most... I mean, there could be more famous, traditional mobile games, Clash of Clans kind of stuff. I'm sure Candy Crush is still crushing it. But nobody cares about that because they don't care about not having to pay the cut. But... Apple responded. I don't know exactly who responded. It's probably just a generic response from the company. They said, "Today, Epic Games took the unfortunate step of violating the App Store guidelines that are applied equally to every developer and designed to keep the store safe for our users. As a result, their Fortnite app has been removed from the store. Epic enabled a feature in its app which was not reviewed or approved by Apple. They did so with the express intent of violating the App Store guidelines regarding in-app payments that apply to every developer who sells digital goods and services. Apple has had apps on the App Store for a decade and have benefited from the App Store ecosystem, including its tools, testing, and distribution that Apple provides to all developers. Epic agreed to the App Store terms and guidelines freely, and we're glad they've built such a successful business on the App Store. The fact that their business interests now lead them to push for a special treatment does not change the fact that these guidelines create a level playing field for all developers and make the store safe for all users. We will make every effort to work with Epic to resolve these violations so they can return Fortnite to the App Store." And then Google did the same thing, pulled it right off the Google Play Store, presumably for the exact same reasons. I have not read any responses from Google. And then finally, Epic has filed suit against Apple. And the important tidbit reads, "Epic brings this suit to end Apple's unfair and anti-competitive actions that Apple undertakes to unlawfully maintain its monopoly in two distinct multi-billion-dollar markets, the iOS app distribution market and the iOS in-app payment processing market. Each is defined below. The complaint reads." Wow. That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot to unpack.
That's a big deal. Sort of.
Yeah.
Because, so for anybody who's just totally oblivious, unaware, naive, etc., here's how platform business works. Apple, Google, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft. We'll go ahead and hold them up as the big five. And then, Steam, and then finally Epic recently are all platform holders. They have a service, they have a software, a storefront, etc., in which people can host their games and sell them from, at which point all transactions that occur, whether it's the game sale or in-app games, whether it's microtransactions or DLC, etc., they get a cut from. That cut for the longest time, probably since its inception of a concept, since Steam started doing this way back when, because they were one of the firsts to have such a prolific digital store. The cut has always been 30%. It's a flat 30%, no way around it. And in recent years, Epic decided to go to war with that, essentially. And I mean, now they've really gone to war, but basically they were trying to change convention. And with their own store, as long as people used their engine or did so many other things, they met certain criteria, they would lower that cut to, what was it, 12 or 15%?
It was pretty low.
Pretty low. And maybe
for
even
the
lower.
Industry.
Steam would later, counter with like, okay, the first X copies or X dollars of, so-and-so will either waive or cut severely the cut. And then afterward, we'll start taking our original 30%, et cetera. And so now just completely fed up with any kind of cut whatsoever, which is a little silly because they'll still take a cut out of their store, but we'll get to that in a bit. They don't want to pay Apple anything for using their service, which seems a little silly.
Yeah, I think ultimately what it boils down to here is that Epic is just trying to expedite the antitrust suits that are kind of already out there against Apple. Mm-hmm. One that I'll point to that actually kind of made sense is the one, I don't know if Spotify was just used as the example for the lawsuit or if Spotify is actually the company that is suing Apple. But essentially what they're saying is, hey, Apple, you can't treat developers differently when you're competing in that market because it gives you an unfair advantage. And so basically, like, Apple has Apple Music. They charge $10 a month for a subscription, which is the same price that Spotify pays. Well, Spotify, you charge your users whatever you want, but if they're going to use it on our platform, we're taking 30% of that. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know exactly where they're at with that litigation. I do know that I read today that Spotify, they've only take 30% now for the first year of the user subscription, and then beyond that, it drops to 15%. I think they have similar discounted deals with both Amazon and Google. So I'm sure this will probably end up how this gets resolved with Epic is they'll just end up getting some sort of discounted rate. But it doesn't change the fact that, I get their point to an extent. And this is the inherent problem with walled garden ecosystems. But at the end of the day, it's Apple's store, and they don't have a Fortnite competitor. I mean, they do have Apple Gaming, but it's completely different business model. I don't really see this going anywhere. Not that I'm a lawyer. It's just I know it feels like they're just doing it to make a point.
Epic, yes, I agree for the most. I mean, fingers crossed they get what they want. That's their mentality. First of all, before we go any further, I could not care less what happens to these two companies. I think they're both, way too rich for their own good. Epic is clawing up its way up the ladder, so to speak, as it tries to become everything its competitors. It's now, because they started off as I don't know if they got into game engine design first or game publishing first, which one, but they've been both for a while. They developed the Unreal Engine, which has become the engine to use if you're not going to build your own. And so their fingers are in all these pies. So they're not doing this for you. They're not doing this for the customer. Apple couldn't care less about the customer as so far as, keeping the goodwill they've developed to continue making their profits.
Right. There are no heroes for the consumer in this battle.
Correct. You do not pick a side. Just get the popcorn out and watch the fire blaze, because that's the only proper way to do this. Because again, it's like, otherwise you're just shilling for a company, and it's fascinating from a business and a legal and like an entertainment, like we are not in the industry, but this is the industry that we like to focus on, and it involves, our hobby and our passion. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't care about Fortnite. I don't care about Apple. I don't care about Epic. This is just really interesting stuff.
Now, here's what I will say. Mm-hmm. I think Microsoft made a good point last week when there was this whole thing about xCloud not coming to iOS platforms, and Microsoft stating issues with how Apple was treating the app. They said to Apple, like, you don't understand the gaming business and you treat gaming differently on your platform, period. Right. And I think that's true, because you look at Google Stadia, that's still not available on iOS. And the reason, it's the same reason. And they've removed other similar apps. I think GeForce Now got kicked off. Steam couldn't use their streaming. One thing I will say that could come out of this for the consumers is if they somehow pressure Google to, I'm not saying open the floodgates and let any app through, but you can't just squash competition because streaming games on the iPhone competes too much with Apple gaming. So that's where I will say okay, yeah, sure, I don't care about Apple, I don't care about Epic, but when you're talking about, now, we can't remote play our games on Steam, you can't use GeForce Now, what's next? They kick off Moonlight, which is another streaming app that's, there's no Stadia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is a lot of pressure mounting, and I'm hoping this is a change for the better, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Even I do agree with you. I do agree with you regarding what you just said about the general issue with Xbox and Stadia. Not that I care about Stadia. I'm never going to use that. But I'm interested in xCloud. I don't use iPhone, but I want you to be able to use xCloud. And so it's a bummer if you can't. Then we can't talk about it. We can't enjoy it together. But even that, at the end of the day, it's like company's going to company. Like, I just don't care. Microsoft will figure out a way to get their product to me, and then Apple will just do whatever it's going to do.
Yeah. And ultimately, I mean, as a consumer, if you care enough, you're just going to buy an Android phone.
Exactly. Yeah. Or eventually they'll put this on, a browser. You'll be able to do this on, so many different ways. So the difference in price, I mentioned earlier, so the 1,000 V-Bucks was $9.99, and then through the Apple payment and then through the Epic payment method, it was $7.99. Now, Apple's cut is 30%. 30% of 10, we'll just round up, is $3. 10
for those of you counting at home.
Exactly. 10 minus 3 is 7. Now, but Epic's still charging $7.99. They're still taking what is essentially $1 for themselves. So not only are they paying less to Apple, they're going to take $1 extra for themselves in every transaction. So they'll claim that is coming to you. And yes, you are saving $2 on a microtransaction. Let's not forget that we're all in a tizzy about microtransactions and in-game currency.
We are not cosmetic.
Exactly.
Cosmetics only.
We are not going to see this kind of thing. Like, okay, the world is turned upside down on its head. Nobody's charging anything anymore to host on a store. Your $60 game isn't going to be $40 all of a sudden. It's still going to be like $55. They're going to take all that money. Like, I love digital, but digital is not going to make games cheaper. If it was, it would have happened by now. And maybe it technically did. Maybe that's a large part of the reason why we're able to stay at 60 for so long. But like, as soon as they can, they'll jack it back up. As soon as Epic can, they'll put V-Bucks back at $10 a pop, or whatever, whatever the minimum increments are.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I did get an email that said something about a 20% permanent decrease like 2 seconds ago, right before we started recording, but I don't believe that for a second.
It means that it's not a sale. It means that for the foreseeable future, it is a permanent decrease, as any pricing is. They're all permanent until they're not, and that's fine.
Right.
No one can see the future.
Sure. I will say that I think the reason people are kind of cheering on Epic is because they're seen as the people who cracked the egg or the shell on why did I say crack the egg? I mean, I got eggs in my mind from last week.
Eggs.
Don't you do it. I think people see Epic as the ones who cracked the code on crossplay. And now we've seen with Fortnite, they've kind of mounted enough pressure on Sony that they've essentially they didn't literally force them, but they were definitely the catalyst for Sony allowing crossplay, I think. And now you see all these big multi-platform games like Call of Duty able to do crossplay, and it's amazing. And I think that's why people are cheering them on. But
they're the underdog, and and at the very least, all they can do, they can sit back and be like, "Oh, we're just a Fortnite guys. Don't you guys like Fortnite? It's cute and fun." And kind of hide behind any. Not to say that Epic is riddled with impropriety or terrible business practices. I don't know enough about that company to be able to say that. But I can say that you'll rarely find a lot of altruism when it comes to that kind of stuff either. But to your crossplay point, that is the kind of thing that benefits gamers almost only. Yes, your game thrives better, and so your marketing is easier, and your player counts are up, and the chance of eyeballs on transactions and store purchases go up. And but it's far more indirect. This is a very you have no control over how long it takes until Epic jacks the price up, or they become the Apple of their own ecosystem. And that's where I wanted to go next with this is, okay, they don't want to pay. I hate to go down this road, but what's the incentive now? What's the incentive to have a storefront? all right, whatever. It's all willy nilly. Install your apps, whatever, and no one's going to trust anything anymore. Like it's a slippery slope. But I'm just like, let's just play this thought experiment out. What happens when obviously it's not going to go away entirely. It's going to go down if anything happens. But then they're going to want even more discounts on the cut, until it approaches zero, because that's their prerogative as a company to their shareholders, etc. So what does this look like? What does a victory for Epic look like?
I don't even know the answer to that question.
Yeah,
I think ultimately, like you said, I don't think this is an altruistic move. I think this is them trying to get a discount, just like Google and Apple, or Google and Amazon and Spotify.
Yeah, that's all it is. I mean, because again, I don't know, what is a world where Sony and Microsoft don't take a cut, where Nintendo doesn't take a cut? What does that look like? Do they just start kicking out everybody? Do we go back to physical, to something like the day digital died? Physical
microtransactions. You have to actually buy the little costume and put it on your little character yourself. Yeah.
That sounds fun. It's like Warhammer. Get your miniatures out, paint them up.
Right, and then they're NFC chips, and you just stick them on the phone, and then beam them right in.
That's cool.
Yeah, boom. It's kind of like an amiibo, but
you listen in. I don't remember who runs Warcrammer. That's not even
Warcrammer. That sounds like a dirty film, my friend.
It does, and we're gonna move on from that.
Yeah, we had another big news story that we thought was going to be the biggest news story of the week until this crazy thing happened. Tell us what we got coming up next, Karch.
What we don't have coming up next is Halo Infinite in 2020.
That's true.
Because it has been delayed to 2021. Studio head Chris Lee, in a statement, Monday or Tuesday, tweeted out, "Today I want to share an important Halo Infinite development update with the community. We have made the difficult decision to shift our release to 2021 to ensure the team has adequate time to deliver a Halo game experience that meets our vision. The decision to shift our release is the result of multiple factors that have contributed to development challenges, including the ongoing COVID-related impacts affecting all of us this year. I want to acknowledge the hard work from our team at 343 Studios, sustainable for the well-being. I don't know if that's the right word. I typed all this. Anyway, for the well-being of our team or the overall success of the game to ship it this holiday. We know this will be disappointing to many of you, and we all share in that sentiment. The passion and support the community has shown over the years has been incredible and inspiring. We wanted nothing more than to play our game with the community this holiday. The extra time will let us finish the critical work necessary to deliver the most ambitious Halo game ever at the quality we know our fans expect. Thank you for your support and understanding." Big blow. Big blow. Right call, big blow.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say is I've gotten to the point where I rarely buy a $60 AAA game at launch anyway, and there's so many fantastic games that I've just gotten to the point where these delays don't really bother me because I feel like it's almost never the wrong call. Almost never.
Right. The wrong call was made 3 years ago when this game... Because reading up a little bit, there was whoever was currently heading the project left halfway through. And whatever happened to make that happen. And because that's never a good thing. You never want that in the middle of a project. And so that was the bad decision. This is the right decision to rectify the bad decision.
Sure. And I think ultimately consumers are going to be happy with the better product. I saw a lot of commentary out there, and I just think it just seemed, I don't know, really critical and mean-spirited because they were like, well, of course this is going to happen because you're trying to support the lowest common denominator in Xbox One and then also make it look good for Xbox Series X. I don't necessarily think that's what's going on here.
I don't either.
So they didn't really cite the real reason behind why they're doing this, but
I wish we had looked it up. Phil Spencer said some stuff today, but I forgot to. But it's something about breaking it out into smaller pieces and delivering it piecemeal. This prevents that or something like that. But it didn't look good. They wanted ray tracing wasn't going to be in the game. They said as much the 2 weeks ago when they showed it off. But now it's going to be able to look as good as they want it to, at least. Not as good as possible, maybe? I don't know. It's hard to say. But But I don't know if that's mean-spirited. I think it's ignorant, I think is a better way to, like, that's not what it is. Because, like, it depends on, I guess it all depends on when did Xbox decide as a company to support the previous generation going into this one. And not just like backwards compatibility and stuff, but like with you know, such a hallmark title. Because like no one would have blamed them if only Halo was going to be like Xbox Series X stuff, you know? But they didn't. They were committing to this. When did they decide that? Because that could have thrown everything into like, you know, chaos. But if this is something they've known for a while, that's not the reason. Because you can scale this kind of stuff if you know you're going to have to. That's not hard. And it does it limit you as far as like how the ceiling? Potentially, but that's just the finished product and not how long it takes you to get there, you know?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, I guess we'll see how this unfolds as we go. I saw some other kind of banter out there that like, does this mean like should Microsoft delay the Xbox Series X?
There's no way they can. There's too much else going on.
Yeah, I mean, not only do I think that would be like, not only can they not, I also think it'd be the wrong call.
Agreed. Yes,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they gain a lot from delaying an entire console with. I mean, there aren't any other exclusives. I don't think like Xbox. Called Microsoft exclusives. Are there?
Off the top of my head, no. I'd have to go back and look at that first party thing that we had.
Right. Because, you know, like, what's the point if it's all on PC? I'm like, because you don't have a good PC, dude. Like, I don't. You do. Jason has a good enough PC to probably run the equivalent of what the Series X and the PS5 will have, but I don't. And so the easiest, the quote-unquote cheapest, easiest way people are going to be able to see next gen is by buying these consoles. Obviously PS5, because that's the only way that you can play those games. But for Xbox exclusive stuff, it still matters that they have a box that is going to output a high-fidelity looking game, you know? It's important. And that's where the exclusives come into play. But if this was their only one, which would have been a good, if you can only have one, Halo was the one to have. And if you don't have it anymore, that really sucks. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just did a Control F looking for Holiday 2020 in my doc from the showcase. This is the only game that I have written for Holiday 2020. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean that there aren't others, but that is the only one that I noted.
Right. And I mean, you'll have things like cross your fingers, guys, because who knows? I would take a bet that Cyberpunk still gets delayed to 2021. But
shut your dirty mouth.
I'm putting it out there. It's out there. You can't take it back.
Come on, dude. Don't jinx us like that.
Karch dirty mouth Paloshti. That's what they call it. Mouth. All right. So 2021. When are we talking February? Are we talking summer? How late are we looking?
I think they intentionally didn't say. So
absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think they wanted to promise Q1 and then not hit it. So
what do you think?
I can't imagine it slipping past Q2.
That sounds reasonable.
Because typically something like this, I don't think it, even if it inevitably does end up getting delayed twice, I don't think you typically delay it more than a year the first time you delay it, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
So
crazy thing is, man, we still don't know jack about these consoles as far as what matters. Like when, because then and we don't have this on the news, but we'll talk about it right now real quick. There was a long rumored, like it was going to be like the budget version of the X called the Xbox Series S. Potentially their all digital version, similar to the SKU that Sony teased, where they'll have no disc drive because it'll be all digital. It was leaked via a controller packaging manual because they've started to sell the Series X controllers in stores, or at least online. Like you can start pre-ordering or buying or whatever, get it in your hands, before the console's out, because they're not changing a lot with the controller, if anything, really. But it mentions how that controller is compatible with the Xbox Series S, which is up until now a thing that Xbox has not confirmed exists. So
interesting.
We now have a second version of the Xbox console we do not know the launch date or price of.
Well, we don't even have it confirmed, so
that too. Like this
officially, we don't have it officially confirmed.
Right. This would be the worst typo of all time. Like, this is your official, like, hardware documentation.
Yeah.
It could still not exist. That could have been an error, and like, it's not coming anytime soon, if ever. But I doubt that. There have been long rumors of a Lockhart. What did they call it? They called it a Lockhart.
That was the code name. Yeah.
Yeah, and a something else. Or the Lockhart was a code name for, like you said, the Series S. Well, the Series X has been known for almost a year now. Well, whatever, 3/4 of a year.
Sure. And that one was some of the rumors that I saw on that one stated that like it was going to be almost like not just digital only, but like a streaming only. So
that, yeah, I find less and less that's probably less and less true.
I agree.
Probably like got mixed up with the xCloud rumors.
Yep.
Or maybe it'll do something extra with xCloud. Who knows? The possibilities are endless, but we won't know until they say anything. And here we are, 3 months from November, and I would have guaranteed that they would have been out. I don't know, man. Is anybody going to be able to afford one?
No, because we're all swirling down and down into just dismal darkness, poverty, health crisis.
Exactly.
Oh, anyway, speaking of controller manuals, we learned a little something about Control this past week, and apparently it is getting a quote-unquote free next-gen upgrade, but only for the new Ultimate Edition. So that's kind of interesting. Here's a quote from Joe Screbbles at IGN. He says, the quote, "The Ultimate Edition was announced today, and it will be released on Steam on August 27th, followed by Epic Game Store, PS4, and Xbox One versions on September 10th. It will come with all previous upgrades and both of the game's expansions." Alongside that announcement came the news that those who bought the console versions of the Ultimate Edition will get a free digital upgrade to the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions of the game when they arrive, but those who already own the game on console will not. So that's kind of weird. Everybody, I feel like developers are going and publishers are kind of going one of two ways. They're either like, we will take all the hate right now, like we're going to announce these crappy, not free upgrades on our cross-gen games, or we're going to, whatever, just get the dirt out there, let people hate us, and then, when it comes out, everyone will forget. You've seen this with 2K announcing their $70 games, or they go the opposite direction and they're like, no, we're going to keep everything the same, $60, don't you worry, holiday games are going to be fine. And I guess they're probably going to take the hate later. So, I don't know which approach, let's dig into this, and then I want to hear your thoughts on which approach you think is better.
I'll talk about the actual Control thing first. It's such a lame thing to do. Like, I bought it. I did technically sell. I bought it physical. I sold my copy to a friend after I was done because I didn't plan on revisiting it. I've actually been thinking about buying it back from him because he didn't want to play it anymore. I was like, I actually kind of think I like that game more than I realized, and I would be willing to play that DLC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, this game did well critically. It won IGN's Game of the Year, so it's like, it's not a bad game, but it did not do as good as it probably could have commercially. And so it's this huge slap in the face to everybody who believed in it and wanted it day one, which I was one of. Like, I sold my copy, and they hate people like me. But that was a weird scenario because at that point I had mostly switched to digital. But it's just kind of this, come on. Like, come on.
Like, what do they really think they're gaining doing this? Because this is not NBA 2K 2021. This is a game that the casual consumer isn't just going to go pick up because they thought the cover looked cool. This is an annualized sports title. Like,
right.
People who are into this are going to care about this.
Agreed. And like, funnily enough, we talked about how you might want to play this, and so we'd pick it up on Steam and split it, and now it doesn't make any difference to us, but I still don't like it. And how hard would it be? How hard would it be to just not do this? To do it the other way? Is it truly a technical limitation? Because I doubt it. I very much doubt it.
I know. I mean, I can't imagine that it is, given that they're offering it on one edition of the game and not the other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that said, I can't get behind this, and I can't imagine, like, when you sit there and crunch the numbers, the number of people who, I don't know, like, do they think people are going to upgrade to the Ultimate Edition to get the DLC so that when the PS5 version comes out and the Xbox Series X version comes out, they'll get that for free? I just think it's a little silly.
Yeah, it's all very experimental, though. Like, we've never had a gen quite like this from one to the next. I mean, it's never been so lateral as far as compatibility.
But who sees the hate that 2K is getting and is like, yeah, I'm going to do that too. Like, look
at any
EA.
company ever, man. Look at any company ever, and that's just, they don't care. They'll take it on the chin at the front,
Except for in some cases. So talk to me about Ubisoft. Like, they're not taking it on the chin up front.
They might not take it at all. Like, I know I said like a week or two ago, I was like, they're gonna, but like, obviously I don't know that. And it remains to be seen. Which do I think is the better option? I think up front, like, ironically enough, is probably the better option because it's still going to happen. I have no control over it, and I will get over it. And I'd rather do it now than later.
Sure.
As a consumer.
I mean, I guess this is technically two different things. This is talking about, like, one issue is upgrading from just to keep it simple, the PS4 version to the PS5 version, and whether or not that upgrade is free if you bought it on the PS4. That's one issue. And then separately is the $60 games versus $70 games. But it all has to do with cross-gen games and how they're being handled and how every developer is doing it differently. And that just is leading to a lot of confusion because you're like, oh, it's this developer, so they're doing it this way. And it's just a mess.
Agreed. Like, so what occurred, or what crossed my mind when I first read this and kind of thought about it is like, so this is like the equivalent. This is how they're going to be able to make their quote unquote next gen remake by releasing these Ultimate Editions nice and early. Because what happened with The Last of Us, for instance, comes out real late in the PS3's life cycle, still does really well, but they know that there's still a lot of people who could play it who didn't get to play it on a PS3 on the PS4, so they immediately made not an HD, it was already HD, but a upgraded, up-resed remaster. Not, what do they call it?
No, it's a remaster.
Yeah, remaster. That's the right
HD
phrase.
Remaster. Yeah, and GTA 5 did the same exact thing.
And so, like, and of course, this was slightly more quote unquote forgivable because Sony had made a dumb choice architecturally with the PS3 that couldn't be easily ported to the PS4 that they've quote unquote, suffered from this entire time. Although I don't think they really suffered that much.
And I want to say, I don't think it was a $60 game. That can be in corrections for
maybe.
next.
I don't know.
I don't know about. Don't quote me on the GTA 5, but I want to say The Last of Us Part 1 HD remaster on PS4. I don't think that was a $60 game. I want to say it was 40 or 50.
It was an easier pill to swallow, though.
Right.
It's this stuff is a lot more like Nintendo. What did they do when Tropical Freeze came out? $60 on Switch. I mean, $60, and they took off the cheaper version that existed on the Wii U digital store before they closed it. Oh no, it's still open. Sorry. It was like $20 or $30 there, and then they were so worried that people might see that and either go buy it or more likely they'd see it priced cheaper on the Wii U and be like, why are they charging you that much on the Switch? It just creates this like disconnect of value in their minds, and they're doing the same thing. Pikmin 3, that's what it is. Since they announced Pikmin 3 on the Switch, they've removed it off the Wii U digital store, and so you can't buy the cheaper version there anymore. And like in the Wii U's, like, the Switch came out 3 years ago. It's like, what are you doing, Nintendo? What are all these people doing?
They're making money. You know what? They make these hard decisions and they're making money, and you and I are sitting here making terrible decisions, giving our content away for free, and we are not making money.
It's true.
Which is why starting next week, Never Free to Play is going exclusive Spotify Premium, $60 a week.
$60 a week. I had no idea. We're gonna make rich.
So much money. Oh my gosh. I'm excited.
It's gonna be great. All right. Let's wrap this news section up with a little game announcement. Rocksteady tweeted out a cool looking poster of Superman with a target on his face. And I don't remember what it said, but basically there's a Suicide game coming out.
Woo! Suicide Squad, not a suicide game.
No, I'm pretty sure it's a Suicide game.
Oh, okay.
It's a really controversial suicide sim.
It's actually modeled after 13 Reasons Why, the Netflix
because,
show.
Why not? Why not make a show about killing yourself and then a game to capitalize off it? No, Jason's right. Suicide Squad. The rumors being that it is another games as a service type thing. So I guess this is just going to be the Avengers, but in DC, except you're not going to get to play the iconic DC characters. So that was a really interesting choice, assuming that's all true,
Right. And I've seen this analyzed to death by different people who are kind of more in the know with DC Comics and like what color are Superman's eyes and what does it mean, and kind of expound on what they think the game's going to be. But we'll find more out on August 22nd at DC Fandom, which is like a virtual conference for DC fans. And while it is odd that you would announce a date for an announcement, I kind of get it because they're trying to bring people to DC Fandom. So, whatever, no qualms. I'm excited to see more. I don't know if I'll want to play it or not, but I do like Rocksteady games. It'll be interesting to see what they do with combat specifically. Like, a lot of people are talking about what's the narrative of the game going to be and what's the style of the game going to be. I'm kind of more interested in like the mechanics and like, is it actually going to be fun? Because I loved when they came out, the Arkham games, and recently I've gone back to play Arkham Asylum, and while it is a great game and it does hold up in many regards, I did find the combat leaving me a little to be desired, because I think other people have seen what Rocksteady did and they've made the evolution of that. And I think you could see a lot of inspiration when you look at games like Shadow of Mordor, those games, or even something like, to me, like what's the Jedi game?
Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, Fallen Order. I think in some ways those combat systems are just similar to me, and they're that third person action parry system, that kind. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of it's not like Dark Souls, but it is kind of more consequential. And I think, I don't know if God of War took from that as much, but like in my mind, I draw a through line. So I'm interested to see what Rocksteady does with this game and if they can evolve on their own combat system.
Yeah, especially if it is Suicide Squad based. Unless that's like a weird rug pull. Like it was like, haha, gotcha. You'll be Superman. It's fine. They'll have a lot more variety, because Batman is Batman. He only does so many things that you can do like in a very like actiony combat kind of way. Like, all the action that Batman does pretty much revolves around punching and kicking, which works in a comic. And it worked in the games. Let's not pretend like those games aren't awesome. They are awesome.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Super cool. But like, is this going to be the classic story? We made our name on a series of really awesome, engaging, highly acclaimed, commercially successful single player games, and now it's time to sell out, because that's what BioWare did. That's what Bungie did. That's what Crystal Dynamics is doing with Avengers right now. Because either they're successful and then there's no going back, or they're unsuccessful and they still have to spend the next like 4 years trying to salvage it.
Well, and just so everyone's on the same page here, though, those big companies, quote unquote, sold out after they became acquired by an even larger company.
Technically, yes, that's the case with just about all those. They are like owned by, at the very least, owned by large publishers. And Rocksteady's always been owned by WB. That's right. Been the case since their first Batman game. This does still leave WB Montreal as another game studio owned by WB, Warner Media, whatever their parent company is. And they were in charge of the redheaded stepchild of that series. What is it? Batman Origins, or Arkham Origins. Yeah. which I hear is pretty good, but for some reason just gets dissed on a lot for no great
because
reason.
it wasn't made by Rocksteady. That's why.
Yeah, but like it's rare. Like no one can tell me like outside of that, no one can tell me why that game's not beloved as well. Like they can't give me cohesive. Like I've never been able to read or listen to an opinion. Like what's wrong with that game? I don't know. I've never played it, but I don't know what's wrong with it. I played the first two. I didn't play Arkham City, and I didn't play Origins either. But I don't know. Hopefully we get to hear. Long story short, hopefully at Fandom we get to hear what they've been up to too. All right, that's enough doom and gloom for now. Let's talk some video games. Video games you can play, video games we've played, or video games we want to play. Jason, what do you wish you were playing?
All right, so I had two things for this subject. The first thing that I wish I was playing is anything I could like stream or record and do a let's play for, because I kind of miss doing that, and I haven't done it since May. The last thing I recorded myself playing was Final Fantasy VII on my birthday, which was like the end of May, and I actually fell asleep playing, and I have footage of myself just like dozing off, trying to stay awake and play Final Fantasy at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I might try to cobble that into something and just like super edit it and then like continue playing that game.
Sure.
But I can't decide the timing. I can't decide, and we'll talk about this in a second, but right now I am playing Ghost of Tsushima, and I don't want to get too much into it because I want to talk about it when we get there, but I can't decide the timing of when I want to get back into something like that. And then the other thing is I have Red Dead Redemption 2 sitting at my parents' house waiting for me.
Don't play that game.
I want to see what it is. I mean, people really liked it. I don't want to necessarily beat it, but I want to see what the world is about and get into it. And like, I know it's a cowboy simulator, but I just want to see it.
Sure. Put your eyes on it. I get you. I hear you.
What about you?
I have no desire to play that game just because of how long it is. I know how long it is. So.
Yeah. I would never be able to beat it.
I had to dig a little for this one. There was not a lot I want to play that I'm not currently playing, but Dead Cells. I think there was a update that came finally to console. I think it had come out to PC and then maybe console like a week later. It was on some Reddit thread, and I was reminded that it exists. And I was like, man, that's a fun game. I should go back to that and play it, because they've had so much content update since I dropped out of it. Like, I don't think they even got the first one out before I stopped playing. A couple complaints that like the new stuff's just like brutal hard stuff for the people who like brutally hard stuff. But I'm sure there's enough in there for me to get another like 10 or 15 hours of enjoyment out of it if I wanted to. So maybe once I'm done with my current Switch game, which is World of Final Fantasy, I might re-download that and jump back in for some 2D, side-scrolling action fun.
Yeah, I played like a couple rounds of it not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I did a couple runs in Dead Cells, but
it's a very unique game. Like, it doesn't track with a lot of other stuff, so it's like I have to relearn that game every time I pick it back up.
Yeah, same here.
Whereas other games, there's just like a common mentality, either in playstyle or design or control scheme or something. But I'm just like, that one, not so much. I feel like
I am really excited to see that game that looks like.
Yes, Foregone.
Yeah.
October-ish, I think, is when they said. We'll see if they get pushed back or not, but that was what they said. Man, whatchamacallit's coming out real soon. Windbound. I was like, I'm going to play Windbound, but now I'm like, oh no. I have so many games I'm playing right now.
We promised the PR guy we would play it, so we have to.
I know.
We have no choice.
Maybe Sean can buy it for a change, and I'll mooch off of him.
Ooh, that's a good idea. You hear that, Sean?
He does. And he likes that idea too.
Yeah, he told us he did.
All right. So, we've both been playing Ghost of Tsushima. Me a little bit more. So, Jason, why don't you tell me how you've been enjoying it past that first tutorial, or those first couple hours?
So yeah, I've probably put in another 2 or 3 hours since then. I'm not very far into the game at all. Mm-hmm. I'm really enjoying the combat. People are probably tired of me talking about combat systems, but I'm drawn to the design philosophy of combat systems and sure. and how you have to balance them. And at the end of the day, that's And a game like this, that's how you play it. That's the fun of the game. That's the majority of the game is the combat. And so I tend to skew my perception tends to be skewed by like the mechanics of the game.
I mean, gameplay's king. It is king, but story's the
unless
queen.
You're Naughty Dog. And then it's still got to be pretty good, but
gameplay is still king because
yeah. I'm with you. We don't have to go into, although that'd be an interesting debate topic, narrative versus mechanics.
Ooh, I like it.
Because you do have a lot of like walking simulators that people, love. But anyways, to circle back to Ghost of Tsushima, yeah, I am really enjoying it. I'm loving the combat. I'm still a little overwhelmed by the complexity, or at least what I perceive to be the complexity of the skill trees. Mm-hmm. And how you do have, and I talked about this a little last week, but how you do have, like the stances, and then the melee like tactics, and you've got the shadow skills, and then you've got separately upgrades for your weapons, and there's crafting, like it's a lot. Mm-hmm. But I guess you've got to give people something to do in this open world that you've developed. So. Yep. I get that. I'm finding myself exploring a little bit more, and I stumbled upon my first Mongol base. I don't know I can't remember what they call them, stronghold, whatever. And I took out the whole camp, and that was like really intense and exciting. And I did see what you were talking about, where like if you do take out 2 or 3 guys that saw you, it doesn't alert everybody. And so you can kind of go back into stealth and take out a couple more guys until you're discovered, and then fight a couple more guys and then continue on. And I think that's kind of unique. Like most games that are like this, when you go into a stronghold or a base, and at least the ones I've played, like if you get noticed by one person, that whole camp is coming after you.
Yeah.
And so like I dug that. I thought it was fresh and like more realistic and more immersive, because it's like, hey, this is how it would be in real life. If you go in here, you get seen by 3 guys that didn't have a chance to tell anyone else or scream, and you took them out. You could just continue on your merry way like nothing happened.
Yeah, it does go. It swings back around in the wrong direction, because like you'll have like an archer on a platform, and he'll blow that horn with all his might, and then you still don't get the whole camp. So it's like, but I'd rather have it the way they do it.
Mm-hmm. Totally. But you having played more of it, tell me your thoughts on this.
I'm still really enjoying it. As far as story, I only just finished Act 1. I have no idea how many acts there are. I would say 3 or 4 just off the top of my head. But I've been screwing around a lot and not doing I do story things. I just don't do main quest things. Like I pepper it. I just do a little bit of everything. And there aren't the critical path in this game would actually be quite short. Like, some people are like, oh, it's kind of a long game. Like, only if you play it like that. Like, you can still probably barrel through this game. You do miss out on a lot of fun stuff, but the stuff you do in the main quest is really the same exact stuff you do in the side quests. There's only so much variety. The variety comes in during the combat, which is why the mechanics and the systems are so important, because they're really well done, and combat has to be enjoyable and fresh and varied. But at the end of the day, you're still fighting Mongols everywhere you go. You're just going to be fighting Mongols. That's the only thing you're going to do as far as combat. And they introduce all 4 types of enemies or 5 technically, because you've got sword guys, shield guys, spear guys, brutes, which are just big fat boys, and then archers. And that's it. And then occasionally this is one-on-one duels, but that's it. And then so the story is really just more of the same, but with the actual story beats. But I'm playing it, and I'm still liking it. I tried out Lethal Mode. Lethal Mode came out like a week or so after the game launched, and basically a lot of people said the game was too easy even on hard mode. I didn't try hard mode out, but basically Lethal Mode is very close to a one-shot kill. Not every single time. You can take maybe 1 hit, and the enemy might be able to take 1 hit, depending on how strong you're equipped with your sword and all that, and your charms and stuff. But for the most part, you will die in 2 hits, even from a bow, which usually does if on other difficulties, bow shots are more just irritating and distracting, because you'll get interrupted, and then now the enemy has an opening. So you want to take out those archers, but it's really fun. It makes, throwing those kunai and using those smoke bombs, and it makes arrows, like, because the bow isn't just, they're not sponges anymore, it's soaking up damage. The bow becomes way cooler, and, you start mixing in the stealth with the cool standoff mechanic, and it really lets you explore the full breadth of everything that they put in this game. That said, there are these one-on-one duels that you do in, like, pivotal moments where it's just you and another, samurai clashing swords. You don't get to use your smoke bombs. You don't get to use anything else except your katana. And you will die in like one hit with those. And so it basically becomes, a mini game more than actual combat at that point. And so I do switch it off for those because it's just not fun. I tried, I died like 10 times in a row. I'm like, nah, can't do it.
So you can switch it just off and on at will?
Dude, right in the moment. It's amazing.
That's really cool.
If you can get to the menu, you can switch it. And it's so fluid. It's so cool. And I'll go into a camp, I'll turn lethal on. And then if I hit a story moment where it's like, you go through like kind of a gauntlet of like too many waves, and it always starts at the beginning if you lose, like the load times make it a lot more forgiving when you die constantly. But even still, eventually, like, all right, I got to make some kind of progress here, so I'll just switch it off and slaughter them, because I haven't even done like a third of the stuff I can do right now, and I'm still super powerful, like on like the normal difficulty. Like there is no way. I
suck at this game, but also like I'll go.
You're not far yet. You don't have like half the tools that you can get yet.
I guess that's probably true. I wouldn't know what I don't have, but
it's a little difficult for me in the beginning. First we got to get the cadence of parrying and like dodging and stuff, and that's one thing. And then you have to actually get a couple upgrades under your belt, because you only have like so much resolve. You only have so much health. You don't have any armor at the beginning, like armor that does something. You have like that broken armor.
You have the broken armor, yeah. Right. I just got the Kuni, and those things are amazing. They're like those so little. What do you call those? The ninja, are they shurikens or what? The ninja star
kunai.
Things?
They're called kunai, which is Japanese for like. I
understand, but I'm trying to relay this to everybody else who has no idea what that is.
They're throwing
ninja
knives.
Stars. They're ninja stars.
They're not stars.
They're ninja stars.
They're not stars.
You use them like a ninja star, though. You throw them at people's throats, and they go, and then they're stunned, and it's amazing. You can throw 2 at a time.
Yep. And then you can upgrade. That's what I upgraded those first. So I carry more. I can have 5 I can equip 5, and then I upgraded it so I can throw 3 at once.
Oh.
And so
also,
what I'll do,
sometimes you can recover them too after you've thrown them, just like the arrows.
The enemies will have them on them half the time. Yeah, for the most part, you're almost never completely out of them. If you just throw them all right away, you will run out, and then you'll be out of luck. But I'll do a standoff, and I'll kill 3 guys right off the bat, and then I'll throw kunai at the next 3, and then just kill them because they're stunned, and then by then there might be like 2 guys left. It's awesome. It never gets boring. It's always fun to just slaughter them.
That would sound so weird out of context, but yeah.
Sounds weird in context. But no, I'm having a great time. I am going to try to focus on the story. What happened is I beat the first act. I did a couple, and then the second they let me go, because after that, once you do the final mission in the first act, they kind of put you on rails. They don't let you do anything else until you get to a certain point. And then I immediately went back to so the island's divided into 3 parts. I went back to the first part. I was like, I'm going to clear all the camps. Takes a little bit longer than I thought it would, even like on easy mode, because I was like, I'm just going to run through these, but there's a lot of stuff to do in each camp and a lot of people to kill, even when you're like trying to rush through it. So I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go back.
So when you drop it down to the easiest baby mode and put on lethal and just cruise.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do lethal or easy. You can't do both.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought lethal was the toggle of like insta kill, and
that'd be cool. But then you could still be insta killed. Sure.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Don't come at me with your logic, okay?
It's my bad. Sorry. Yeah, but apparently I've been playing it for a while, because like I looked at the calendar. I was like, let's see, this game came out on the 14th. I'm like, oh, that was a month ago, and I got it like the next Saturday. So I've had it for about 3, almost 4 weeks now, or 3 weeks. Nope, 4 weeks. And so I'm only in Act 2. I'm like, oh, I gotta book it. I gotta get through this game.
Pick up the pace, man. You got all that nothing to get to.
No, I have Windbound. We're gonna play Windbound.
Yeah, well, you're right. We are.
Comes out like the 25th or 6th, something like
of
that.
this month.
Yep.
Oh my gosh! And then Tony Hawk Pro Skater Labor Day weekend, baby.
Ali man.
I might buy that for the Switch if it's on the Switch.
I don't think it is.
Well, darn.
All right. I've been playing another game called World of Final Fantasy. That's how they say it when you load it up. So buckle in, sit back, because I'm about to tell you all about this lovely little game.
Oh boy, I'm just gonna walk out of the room. Just tell me.
Just gonna talk to myself for the next 20 minutes.
Call me when you're done.
All right, I'm gonna try to hit this as high level as I can because I can get too far into the nitty gritty when it comes to these jerpagers.
I'm gonna try to help you.
Thank you. So this game came out probably a while ago at this point, like maybe 4-ish years ago. I don't remember exactly, 3 or 4 years ago. To some moderate success. It was, well received, but it wasn't like a smash success by any stretch. It's an offshoot. It's not a main Final Fantasy game. The whole crux is that it is just kind of a cute side game in which characters from other Final Fantasy games will make appearances. And it basically works off of a turn-based strategy, or not turn-based strategy, turn-based RPG, classic JRPG stuff. You fight these things called mirages. The mirages are modeled after, for the most part, classic Final Fantasy enemies, so or just creatures, so chocobos and tonberries and cactars, etc. And
it all sounds terrible.
It's the worst.
And you did talk a little bit about this game last week, but I think you just basically told us how annoying that one character was. So continue.
I did, and because I hadn't gotten that far yet. But you can capture the mirages and you put them on your roster. And then what you do is you put them on your head, or you get on top of them to create a stack. And then the stack increases your stat. It combines all your stats together. So your HP goes up and all your strength and all that stuff goes up while you have the stack. And then you get different abilities depending on the existing abilities of the people in that stack. So like if you have a fire spell on 2 of the creatures, that might combine into a stronger version of that fire spell. That is the most simple way of describing it. Enemies can attack you and wobble your stack, and the stack might fall over, and then you'll lose a turn, and you'll get wailed on, and you might all of a sudden find yourself in a game over situation. Alternatively, enemies can be stacked on top of each other, on top of their heads and stuff, and you can knock them over and take advantage of that. So that's kind of fun too. It's a very simplistic take on a classic system with like this goofy little turn or twist in it.
It's not grid based though, just turn based.
No, turn based, not grid based. Okay. Yeah. And you only ever have the 2 characters. Technically, you can have like 6, because if you don't stack them all up, or you can choose to unstack as like a strategy to prevent yourself from getting knocked over and then restack up. It's this whole thing. I haven't had to like implement that because for the most part, it's very easy. It's kind of steamrolly, but it's fun. You capture them. They all have different reasons for why they need to be, or they all have different methods and how they get captured, but you don't have to mess around with stuff like Pokeballs. They all just kind of like, okay, you found this one, you can catch it. It's fine. Whatever.
But what do you keep it in?
They're called prisms or prismariums or something.
So not Pokeballs though.
No, but like you don't have to buy like 10 Pokeballs and hope that it catches it.
Gotcha.
They give it to you and you can reuse it as much as you want until you catch it, and then it's used up.
That's kind of nice.
It is kind of nice. I like it. They can do things in the overworld that affect the overworld. The level design, like as far as like the dungeons you crawl through, it's super basic. They're so small, so flat. There's nothing to do to them. There's way too many cutscenes in this game. Like, and this is something I kind of hate because what was it? Ghost does this too. Ghost of Tsushima. There's this new thing in gaming where, or at least in some games, and Final Fantasy VII Remake did this a lot. You'll have a cutscene, fine. They'll let you go. They'll tell you to do a thing, and you do that thing, which is usually walk into another room, and then boom, there's another cutscene. Just make me walk into the room. Why did I have a cutscene sandwiched in between another one? Or why did I have this dumb little like moment of character, like where I controlled the character, only to have 2 cutscenes on either? It doesn't make any sense.
I noticed that in when I played what's the game I hated, Yakuza.
Yeah, I'm sure it's there too.
And a lot of times what I noticed is that at least in that game, and maybe this is just because it's an older game, but you would be in a pre-rendered cutscene, you would walk 2 steps, and then you'd be in a game engine cutscene. And I don't know why,
Don't know either.
That's what I noticed.
Even Last of Us did that sometimes. Last of Us Part 2, it would just be like, here's a cutscene, and it's like, it might be a little bit longer, but essentially the crux of it was move your character to the next cutscene, and like with no combat, nothing to find, just do it. I'm like, but just have a longer cutscene, or better yet, have a shorter cutscene. What's the point? So on top of the Pokemon-esque aspect, the other big thing is that in this world called Grimoire, everybody here is tiny. They're called Lillykins, and basically what they look like, they call them chibi. That's like the word you use when you take something and make it small, and the head's huge, but the body's like kind of tall, small underneath it. And they basically look like Funko Pop dolls.
I just Googled this, and I hate it so much.
Oh, like, I'm sure you would.
I couldn't even turn this game on. Like,
no, I would make you play this to torture you.
It really would.
Yeah. And so basically you can walk around as a Funko Pop doll or as a regular sized person, and that determines whether or not you can have something on your head or sit on top of something that's bigger than you. And it's again, it just adds to the gameplay complexity while also being a really stupid story aspect.
I love how the crappy art style is a game mechanic.
Yeah, kind of.
It's great.
That's stuff you can only get with really Japanese stuff. As far as story goes, you play as twins Lon and Rain. Lon is an idiot. He's the male twin, and he doesn't know anything about anything. He couldn't tie his shoes if he wanted to. Rain is the level-headed one who always makes fun of him. But I love them. I like them a lot. I think they're very well voiced. I think they're like the writing, while like, kind of childish, is still pretty decent. Like, I like the back and forth. Like, Lon doesn't swear, but he uses like words in place of swearing. So like, he'll say, "What the honk?" And I don't know why, but that cracks me up. Like, and he says it in the dumbest, most irritating way possible. But I love it. There was another one. What was it? I don't remember. But he's got all these stupid words that stand in for like swearing and stuff. It's very like, so you have this cutesy Final Fantasy thing on one side, and then you'll have these. You'll meet this character who's dressed in all this dark armor, and he's like, "I want to destroy the world and return everything to the void." And like, your characters don't know what that means because they have amnesia, because they didn't know they had amnesia until someone told them they had amnesia, and just thrust them into this extra world where they're like, "Okay, that's fine. I don't care." And then it turns out they remember that their mom was just like them, and they have to find out the mystery of that. And I don't know. I'm like 5 hours in, and I'm really digging it.
Sweet. About how long is that game?
I don't know. I didn't look it up. I usually don't. I have to get in the habit of that before I start playing and buying games. But it was half off. Usually it's $40. I've been playing it on Switch. Perfect kind of Switch game. This is technically World of Final Fantasy Maxima, which is like the ultimate version where they add a bunch of extra content. So I actually don't know what the differences are. I think there's extra mirages, probably extra game modes. I think a New Game Plus was one of them. I'm never going to play a New Game Plus, but it's there if you like that kind of stuff. If I had to guess, it's probably like 25, 30 hours.
People are saying 36 hours for the main story was the average.
Really? That's longer than I would have thought for the kind of game that I've seen so far.
It's based on 77 people polled, so not a huge sample size, but
no. But I will say it is probably accurate, because the people who play these kind of games usually do like play them. So even they'll say like, "Oh, I only did the main story." I'm like, "Yeah, but you probably took your time."
Right? Yeah. But isn't that kind of how you play it too, though?
Sometimes, usually for the first 10 hours maybe, and then I realize that I need to wake up and smell the coffee and be like, "No, I got to get through this." if I want to see the end of it. So the Final Fantasy characters come in an interesting way. Usually these kinds of crossover games are stupid, and it's like, "Oh, there's Cloud, and he hates Sephiroth, and he has angsty past," or there's another character, and all you're doing is reliving the stories of their main game, and it's kind of disconnected, and it's rehashed, and it's very uncreative. In this game, they look the same, and they have the same personality, but they live in this unique world. This is a world that they know. They don't think that they live in like their game's world. They have no idea what that is. They exist in this grimoire world. And so it feels more organic. And so it's kind of nice to have like this completely original story, even if it does have characters from other games, because then it is just kind of fun. Like, Cloud is here, but he's doing stuff that makes sense in this world instead of just being like this, hey, remember Final Fantasy VII? Because we do. We don't need to be reminded of Final Fantasy VII.
Sure. That's kind of cool. That's a neat take on it.
Yeah. So I like it. I'm going to keep playing it. I'm done with Harvest Moon. Story seasons, whatever.
Did you beat it, or are you just done?
No, I'll pick it back up when, I always forget how long those games are. Like I at no point was I ready to stop, but when I looked at where I was, how much I quote unquote had to do before I would be satisfied with like the end of the game, so to speak. I'm like, man, it's gonna take another like 30 hours, and like I got to move on to something else if I want to play something else.
Sure.
And so I'll just put it on the back burner. I'll come back to it just like I do Stardew Valley.
All right then.
Yeah.
Well, that was our happy time. Let's get
Happy
mad
time.
again.
I'm ready to get mad. Jason!
What is your gaming gripe of the week, Karch?
I'm so fed up with Marvel's Avengers. I don't know what to do with it. I want to play it, but I don't. But then I do. But then I don't. I hear a podcast that loves it, and I'm like, yeah, me too. And then I hear a podcast that hates it, and I'm like, I'm mad. Because at first,
why would they make this?
Why would they make this? Because at first it's like, Avengers, yeah! And then it's like, oh no, it's Avengers, because it's like off-brand Avengers.
It's like great value.
Exactly. It's great value Avengers. And not just the way they look, but just the presentation in general is like, this is closest to generic as we could get while still using the main license. Like, I don't know how much of it, if anything, they're pulling from like existing storylines. I have to imagine that they're going to use their own original one at first. And in fact, I think I know they are. But I hope later on they just start pulling straight out of comics. Just pull Avengers stories out of comics. It's fine. Nobody cares. Then you don't have to do the work. But like, it looks so fun, but also like the most boring game I think I've ever seen as far as like a AAA huge property kind of thing. But then it's coming out so soon, and it's like in like early mid-September, like a month away basically, and like I just can't put more on my plate. But like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
You play the beta this weekend, dude.
Is it this? No, that's Xbox beta.
Oh, is it?
I think so, because last weekend was the or maybe that was the week
beta.
before.
Last week was the pre-order beta.
For PlayStation, though. Because they're not all happening at the same time. They're doing this incredibly... Like, there's 4 betas in total.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll play when it comes. We'll play the PlayStation... Or we'll play the open one whenever we get a chance. And sure. I don't really know. But basically, it boils down to... It just looks like a prettier version of our Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah.
Because like there's nothing at first I thought, okay, they won't have as big a roster because they'll be able to like make the characters more unique, but it doesn't seem like they are. It seems like they're too scared to make them. They don't want someone to bring Iron Man and be like, man, I should have brought Hulk, even though you're always going to have like 4 people in the multiplayer content, even if it's AI. So there should always be a role filled. But when you do these kinds of games, they're not fun if your character doesn't feel like they're contributing in a unique way. You know, like MMOs, for the suckiness that they are, like they have this thing called the Holy Trinity: tank, healer, and DPS. Tanks do the aggro and they keep the boss's attention. Healers heal and DPS does the damage. And, you know, Warcraft and other games like it have gotten flack when they try to homogenize people and take away the uniqueness of any given class or spec. And to see them do this out the gate, it's kind of like, okay, Hulk smash, but so does Black Widow.
Yeah.
You know, she's got a gun, but he can throw a rock. And it is a little different, but...
Did you watch anybody do like a playthrough of the beta?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I watched one, and it looked like in this first beta at least, and I don't know if every beta will be the same, but it looked like they basically just let you play a tutorial of each character. But I did hear some feedback that it felt very arcadey. So it'll be interesting once we get our hands on it to see if it does feel like what you're describing. I hope that it doesn't, but it kind of looks that way.
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's why I'm so conflicted. Like, people I agree with are just like across the board, and some people like it because they know what it is. Like, they're not necessarily saying it's great, but they love the grind, and so of course their perception is colored positively. And other people who don't love the grind, like, I guess that's what it is. Like, if you like the grind and you like Avengers, this is going to be the game for you. But if it's not, if you don't, and you don't, then you don't. Like,
yeah.
But but there's this part of me that's just like, I want to play it. I don't know why, but I do.
Do the beta. I'm telling you, it is this weekend. It's this weekend. It's tomorrow. Which by the time this goes live, the beta will have already ended. But it's tomorrow, August 14th through Sunday, August 16th. That's the PS4 open access, and then also Xbox closed access and PC closed access. And then the following weekend, August 21st. Friday, August 21st through Sunday, August 23rd, that is open to all platforms.
We're going to have to do that one because I won't be available this weekend reliably.
I thought we were doing the spoiler cast Sunday.
Right. Not playing Avengers.
Oh, okay. Well, I might dip in this weekend. We'll see. Well, I don't know.
Feel free, but I'm saying, like, if we're going to coordinate, we'll have to do it the weekend after.
I don't know that they're allowing multiplayer.
It had multiplayer.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. It was a considerable amount of content for a demo beta. Like, they gave you they did the A-Day scene, basically, that, like, on the Golden Gate Bridge. Like,
right, that's the only part I saw.
You get to do that. You get to do another story beat where you go as Kamala Khan and the Hulk doing this, like, infiltration thing. And that's all the single player content. And then finally they did give you some war table. That's like their multiplayer content. Where you could group up with people and do a 4-person thing. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll do the single player stuff this weekend and we can do multiplayer next weekend.
I think they make you, so hopefully you don't have to do it twice.
No, if I do, I do.
Yeah. Alrighty. That was my gripe. Indecision.
That's my internal gripe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, all right, what are we going to do here? We got a decision to make.
Yeah, we're going to cut the topic of the show.
Okay.
And we're going to talk to Sean through his question. Sean writes in, he says, "Hey, fellas, we've talked about how open world has become one of the dominant genres. Oh, it has. I know a few years ago, after giving up on the Assassin's Creed of that year, I felt so refreshed to play an on-the-rails game. Have you had a similar feeling with the genre recently? And if so, what games has it led you to discover? Take care, Sean." Thank you, Sean.
Always
Jason?
Such insightful questions.
He's really good at it. I love his questions. I would love to hear more questions. I would love to have to decide, do I pick Sean's question because he supported us for so long and he's one of our best friends? Or do I throw him to the trash because I want to satisfy new listeners?
Sure. Or, maybe Josh writes in a question someday. Who could say? Who could say? Or Kane. Maybe even Kane, huh? I'm not going to say that Kane's not listening because he always surprises me.
I know. That's the moment he's like, all right, I'm going to stop listening.
I'm not going to say that.
It's like he's scrubbing the audio somehow for his name.
Right.
And then he zooms in on it.
Okay, I guess I'll start. So I totally have felt that with open world games, Sean. And I would say just as recently as the past 2 months, I've been reminded of that because, The Last of Us Part 2 came out. I bought that day one back in June, and I played through that, and I just finished it up like 2 weeks ago. And then I went right into Ghost of Tsushima, which is more of an open world game. And like, I am feeling so overwhelmed by the open world. I thought breaking it up with that kind of more narrative driven, quote unquote, on rails experience would like make me want to play something more open world. But it just made me crave more of that like narrative-driven on-rails experience. And so I would say I've definitely felt it there, and I felt that way for a really long time. Actually, I've had, I guess I've heard it referred to as open world fatigue, and I've definitely been bit because I remember back when I was first playing like Vice City, probably well before I should have been playing Vice City, like back in middle school.
Definitely.
And I remember just thinking like, this is the future of gaming. Like, this is amazing. Like, I can't imagine how big can they make worlds? How open can they make worlds? How much freedom can they give me? How interactive can they make the environments? I could go anywhere. I could do anything. And it's inconsequential. And I just like craved that for the longest time. And then I feel like we just got this surge of open world games, and then I'm like, whoa. Where my narrative linear experience is gone. And Sony came in and filled that void. And the other thing that I was going to say about this is I kind of became the same way about first-person shooters. Like, I feel like first-person shooters, and maybe this is inaccurate, but I feel like they got really big on the PS3 and Xbox 360 generation. Because that's when we had the advent of like the two thumbsticks that were like a super usable controller. I guess PS2 had that, but no matter. First-person shooters became very popular during that generation. And I just remember being like, man, first of all, I'm bad at them. Second of all, I am now of the belief that I don't even necessarily think a controller is a great way to play a first-person shooter. And so, like, when Sony came into their own and started putting out all these third-person action-adventure games that were narrative-driven, I'm like, yeah, that's my jam. So, anyway, those are the two kind of genres that got me, or the open world and the first-person shooter.
Yeah, open world came around late last gen, early this gen. Is when it solidified itself as like, this is what games are now for the most part, if it isn't a niche kind of, if it isn't super true to its other genre, you know? And I had very little experience with them for the longest time. I couldn't tell you what my first open world game like really was, but the few that I played out the gate, like when they were, you know, when I finally got my hands on some of them, I didn't like them. So like I was fatigued out, you know, like almost right away. But in general, as far as like rediscovering something, 2018 and then a part of 2019 was kind of like my coming home to 2D side scrollers, like Metroidvanias, platformers, roguelikes was a thing I had like roguelikes specifically I had never really dabbled in before, like, you know, the last couple of years. I'd been a longtime fan of Metroids and Marios and all that kind of stuff, but it had been a while since I really played them. Kind of started with Shovel Knight, because I played that on my 3DS maybe like 2015 or 2016. Anyway, Celeste was the first major game to come out to like huge success in 2018, and even would like go on to win some people's Game of the Year, and was at the Game Awards as a potential contender. So that was like, boom, let's go down this rabbit hole. And then Hollow Knight, I think that same year for the Switch, which is a very long game, much like an open world, so it can feel fatiguing, but at the same time, it's at no point does the scope like open up. It's always still like, traverse this, it's 2D, fight the bosses, move on, do this again, uncover the map, all that stuff. And then after that, I know it came out in 2018, but 2019, you and I played The Messenger, which we both really loved. Same thing with Katana Zero. Somewhere in there, I started playing Enter the Gungeon and Dead Cells, which are both like, you know, it's about repetition. You know, you play the same levels over and over again, hoping you get a little further, with Gungeon being a bullet hell, which is very different from the kind of like up close, you know, melee combat of Dead Cells. I'm saying that right? Dead Cells?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Sometimes I get it confused with Dark Souls, like in my head, and then I'll just say the wrong thing.
You got it.
I just find them to be, those kinds of games to be the perfect kind of palate cleansers while still being like really strong titles in their own, as long as the game is of course good. You can play a crappy one, obviously. But like if you're looking for something that's just by nature going to be a little bit shorter, those are my favorite kind of games to go to. I always try to have one like on the back burner, not that I'm playing, but just that I'm like, okay, I can pick this up now and go play it now. I don't have one right now, actually. I think like my current back burner game is like Bug Fables.
Did you actually buy Bug Fables? Because you keep talking about it.
No, I haven't bought it yet.
Okay. Yeah, no, I would echo that. I kind of had this like same exact renaissance, I guess, at the same exact time, playing through all these indie games. And what I loved about them, just like what you said, is they're incredible experiences if it's a good one, and they're bite-sized. And just like for me, being a person that doesn't have a lot of time to play games, but like enjoys the satisfaction of actually beating a game, those indie titles are a lot of fun, and they're typically a little less expensive, so you can
almost
play more
always,
of them. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, especially the indie ones. Not always the 2Ds, but definitely the indies. And
having
usually
said
the
that,
tutors.
I literally cannot beat Dead Cells. I've gotten to the final boss and died, and I think that's the farthest I'm ever going to get. I was so frustrated.
I could beat that guy. I almost did on one or two of my runs, and then I just, I fell off the game, but I could get him. I could not, because the game basically just starts over in a harder difficulty, and then whatever. And I'll never get further than that. But I could definitely beat it on the base difficulty. It's not beyond my skill as a gamer.
But that was at my peak of when I was good, and I haven't really touched it in like over a year. I would basically have to restart.
Yeah, pretty much.
But anyway, well, that was a pretty long episode.
They always are.
Yeah, but I think it was a good one. And I think Sean and Josh are probably the only two who made it this far. So
if you decide you like us, hit the subscribe button. Listen to the podcast. Tweet at me, and I'll tweet back. Unless I don't, because I'm bad at that.
Lovely. All right. Well, we'll leave you with that little jingle. You all have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play.
Man, why does everyone got to argue? Everyone's got to be right. Even though I'm right, I don't really care. But they got to be right. You know what? Free things do you? Free things lead to blah, blah, blah. There's no such thing as a free lunch, man. I'm just trying to get a bite. Just trying to get a bite to eat. That's all I want. I'm a very amateur drawer. Here's an amazing piece of art that took me like several hours and years of practice. Hope you like my Mario cake.